Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Ganem, and I'm the product lead for Google Analytics for Firebase. And I'll be joined in just a minute by Jumana from Firebase Predictions. And this afternoon, we want to share with you and highlight some brand new, powerful features related to user segmentation in Firebase that enable personalization and engagement of your users. 2 years ago, at the Firebase Summit in Berlin, I spoke at length about this idea of actionable analytics. That the data that you're collecting shouldn't just be fodder for charts and graphs and boring stuff like that, but that the insights that you get from your analytics data would be actionable. And analytics audiences are a perfect example of that ability. Analytics audiences allow you to segment your users based on their observed behaviors and their user properties. And then, once you have created those audiences, you can engage those users with any combination of notifications or advertisements or personalization in your app. And whereas analytics segments users by their observed behavior, Firebase Predictions actually segments them based on their predicted behavior. And these two tools, which can actually be used in combination with one another, enable very dynamic capabilities in user segmentation. Backing up a second, I'd like to explain why dynamic user segmentation is important. It's important because your users are dynamic. Based on time spent in your app, seasonality, time of day, day of week, week of month, disasters, you name it, things that go on in the world, users' pattern and level of engagement with your app changes and fluctuates. And so you need a system an audience membership that will reflect the latest state of your audience. Because if it doesn't, if it casts too wide a net, if it doesn't update dynamically as your users are changing, then at best it can just be a vague impression of the segment you were trying to identify and engage. And that's a big problem. Because if you're not confident that your audiences contain the exact users that you had precisely defined, you're going to be very shy about reaching out to them and hesitant. If you do reach out to them, you won't be very bold because you know you've cast too wide a net and you have a lot of false positives in there. And that's why we've taken in a lot of your feedback on the use cases that are really important to you, and we've made massive improvements across the board to our audience evaluation. Because we know that when you feel that your audience is crisply and precisely defined, you'll feel emboldened to engage them, in contrast to before. And that boldness will be reflected in the text of your notifications, or the copy and the creative of your advertisements, or the degree of app personalization, because you know you're targeting the users you intended to. So I'd like to take you through an example of this to make it more real with my app, Transworld Endless Skater. This was a game that I built before coming to Google with my partner. We both worked on the Tony Hawk series of video games, and we wanted to basically bring that to mobile. And so primarily we were targeting mid-core and hardcore gamers. But along with them, we got a whole trove of casual gamers too. Those users were attracted by either the brand or the athletes or any number of things. But what we noticed was that those users were having a lot of trouble getting even past the first level. They were trying and trying, but not making much progress. And you know what happens if they're not making much progress and getting frustrated, you're going to lose them because there's a million other things that they could be doing with their life. So what we're trying to do is try to capture those users in an audience, make the game a little bit easier for them, then re-engage them and encourage them to come back because we feel that they're going to make progress and hopefully stay in the game and not churn. So the first thing you do when you create an audience is try to define it in terms of the data that you're collecting. In this case, I'm going to call my audience the frustrated novices. And this is how I would define them, logically. These are users who are on the first level of my app currently. They've started 20 levels without actually completing one. They've logged 10 sessions in a 3-day period of time. And they've met this criteria sometime in the last 30 days. Let's dive into these one at a time to explain them a little more detail and to highlight the new features of Audience Builder that enable this. The first is level equals 1. We've all played games. You know you start at level 1, but hopefully you don't stop there. You progress to level 2, to level 3, and so forth. But for these frustrated novices, we specifically only want to capture those users who are still on level 1. And so our dynamic user property evaluation, which is brand new, We'll disqualify the user from the audience once they progress to level 2. So they'll start in level 1, they'll be part of the audience, and they'll exit the audience when their state changes. Pretty straightforward. The second condition is these are users who are started 20 levels but haven't completed one. That implies that they're retrying over and over again or quitting because they're not making progress. And so what we want to do is first, there's 2 parts here. First is actually including users when they actually log their 21st level start. But there's an exclusion criteria too. We're specifically defining the condition under which a member leaves the audience. And so by using our new exclude groups, when the user logs a level end event, they'll be removed from our audience because that's a sign that the user has made progress and probably not frustrated anymore. The third criteria is more than 10 sessions in a 3-day period. If I asked you, is 10 sessions a lot in a user's lifetime? You'd probably say, well, that depends on how long the lifetime is. If the user's only been using your app 1 day, sure. If they've been using it for a year, probably not. And so by using time-based criteria, you can actually normalize that and make it a more meaningful metric. And so here we want to include users in this audience only when they've satisfied that metric within a specified period of time. And this is going to indicate to us specifically that these users were highly engaged for a short period of time, further indicating that they were engaged with my content and bringing them back is worthwhile. And the last criteria was related to the membership duration. And this is what we call freshness. We want these users to stay in the audience no more than 30 days after they met this condition, met this criteria. That's because we intend to actually reach out to these users with notifications and advertisements. And we don't really want to reach out to users who haven't played in like a year and a half. They might just realize like, oh, I forgot I still had that app installed, and they'll uninstall it. So here we use membership duration to control how long users stay in the audience. And when 30 days pass after they met that criteria, they exit the audience. So again, precisely defining exactly the set of users we want to engage. And with that, let's jump into the console and see what this actually looks like. And I'll try to define it and re-engage these users all in one fell swoop. Let's see how long it takes. All right. Switch to the demo, please. All right, so we're here in the audience builder. And I'm going to create this new audience of frustrated novices. All right. And the first condition was a user property condition that the user was on level 1. Remember that now we are by default interpreting this as dynamic evaluated. So this really means users currently on level 1. Notice that there's this checkbox here where you can indicate this is users who have ever been on level 1, which for my game means all users. But we're not going to do that. We want frustrated new users. Next was the frustration criteria. That was 20 level starts without a level end. So here we'll select level start, indicate that the count is greater than 20, and add an exclude group. So that was the inclusion criteria. The exclusion criteria was users who log a level end. Simple enough. Third criteria was that short period of time-constrained events. So that was session start, more than 10 of them, and here's that time window I was talking about. I can say that has to happen in any 3-day period to demonstrate a high level of engagement. And lastly, membership duration, which defaults to my chosen duration, which is 30 days, meaning that after 30 days of meeting this criteria, the user leaves the audience. And with that, I will create the audience, and there's a success message. All right, I have the audience created, but that's only part of the way there. Remember, we wanted to make the game easier for them. So let's head over to remote config because my game is dynamically set up like that, data-driven. You'll notice I have this parameter called difficulty multiplier, which allows me to easily tweak the difficulty for users in my game, 1.0 being normal, lower being easier. So right now that's set for the same value for all users, but we want to make a new value for a new condition here. So for frustrated users, on my Android app, Okay, then I'm going to choose that audience. And we're going to make it half as hard for them. And publish that change immediately. So what happens is, as soon as a user comes back into the app and they have met that criteria, they will get this new value from remote config. The game will be easier for them. So far, so good, but what if users have already churned or aren't coming back? This isn't going to make them come back by itself. So to catch those users, we're going to use a push notification campaign. But not just any push notification campaign. These new long-running campaigns are really come in handy for this use case. So we'll start a new campaign. The title is going to be, Come Back. And please come back. All right, you'll put more thought into it than I will, right? And you select the Android app. And again, our audience. Frustrated novices. And here, rather than just sending now, we are going to send these daily, but once per user for this message. So what will happen is that as users enter this audience, meet this criteria, then each day it will send a message to that user if they're new, only if they're new to this audience. So they'll get at most one message. We won't be pestering them. We could, but we won't in this case. And so I can actually run this campaign, set it up, and just leave it running, and know that it's like a continual campaign that engages users as they become frustrated. Lastly, we'll set up a conversion event that we want to target. Our goal here is to get these users not just to come back, but to make progress that's indicated by this level end event. So we'll see a funnel in our reporting of messages sent to open to that conversion. And then we'll publish it. That's right. I just sent that to my real users. All right. So very powerful, and I did that in, 4 minutes. I went through that whole setup. So you can see just how simple and powerful that one can be. All right, can we switch back to the slides, please? Thank you. So I have to say thank you to this audience. This summit has been very instrumental to us because we get amazing feedback that's actionable, that affects our roadmap. In building out these features, I was keeping a running list of feedback of audiences that users wanted to create but couldn't. And that was our guiding light and our principle behind building these features. So it's really satisfying to be able to announce that at this event. And we hope that it helps you succeed in your businesses. Up next, Jumana is going to come on stage and explain how Firebase Predictions can actually amplify a lot of these use cases. Jumana?
Thank you, Steve. Thanks to Steve, and hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jumana Al Hashal, and I'm the lead product manager on Firebase Predictions. And it's really such a treat to be here with you in Prague on this day. As Steve mentioned, dynamic audiences are really great for segmentation based on quantifiable past behavior, like if a user has finished a level or not in your game. But sometimes, really, it is advantageous to anticipate user behavior so you can shape their experience throughout your app. And that could be better than just simply observing it. For example, it might be a lot more effective to re-engage users that are already trying in your app or in your game, rather than trying to bring them back after they have abandoned your app. But think about it for a second. If you try to write a set of rules for every single reason why a user might be leaving your app or your game, that would be a super daunting task. It could be anything from the actual user experience, to the number of crashes you're having, to the performance, to the frequency of ads, to any number of things. Not only would it be daunting to keep it, but damn near futile to keep it up to date. Especially like you're on a couple of weeks release cycle. How would you keep such a rule set up to date? And that is really where machine learning comes in super handy. Because basically, we can take this set of behaviors you're already logging about your past users and train different machine-learned classifiers on it. So we effectively abstract the set of patterns that could lead them to certain complex behavior, for example, churn. And then we take the learning and apply it to new users. So we look at what they've done to date, and based on that, we can look into the future and say, are they likely to follow the same path or not? So Steven and the rest of the team have done a great job instrumenting their app. There's a lot of data coming in. We have data about the events that are happening, the different levels, the different characters that the individual players are using, their crash data, different signals about the device, and so on. So we actually went ahead and turned on predictions for them. Single click of a button, no machine learning expertise on their team necessary. So let's go back and see what can we do to further help Steve and his team with Transworld and Skater. And can we combat churn by surfacing certain features that we've observed have helped people retain in our app over time. One such feature was that we observed that users who go ahead and change their default characters, so there's multiple characters you can play as, and that gives you different power-ups. And if you change the character, people end up staying in the game a little longer. So we thought, maybe people who are like about to leave the app or churn, if we expose such a fun feature to them, maybe they'll stay longer. So I went ahead, Steve already demoed this, so I'm not going to go through it again, and defined a default Skater user audience. So this is a dynamic audience that includes anybody who passed level 1, and has never swapped their skater, and has been playing the game within the last 30 days. So we don't want to reach people who have long stopped playing. So we're going to augment that by seeing who of these people are predicted to churn, and see what we can do inside of the Firebase platform to help retain them. So if we could go to demo right now. Perfect. So this is what the predictions homepage looks like for the game. So Firebase Predictions maintains the machine learning model, the training, the daily updating. These predictions update every single day on actual player behavior. And you can see it is segmenting on a possibility for churn and spend. You can also define anything that you are logged in as a conversion event. You can see how well your predictions are doing. You can see over here, this prediction correctly was able to identify 90% of the user who ended up spending in this app, and made no more than 10% false identifications or false positives. This evaluation is based on historical data. We take a chunk of your historical data, we call it holdout data, and after we're done training the model, we test. Since we know what the result is already, we can actually give the prediction a score on how well it's doing. And then we can use it in any number of applications. But I wanted to quickly show you the brand new details page, which helps you understand the different risk profiles, see how you can integrate predictions within the rest of Firebase, and look at what events contributed to this particular prediction. So let's go ahead and figure out how we can use this prediction in a cloud messaging campaign. So I went ahead and actually just created this so that we can just go and edit. So I'm going to send a slightly more specific message. So try a new character, and letting the users know that different characters will give you different power-ups. And I will target users who are in my dynamic audience of default skater and are predicted to churn. And then I can hit scheduling, and it will start going. It will evaluate only once. So basically, let me here actually choose once. So I'm going to choose it to go daily. So only new users who become predicted to churn will ever get this. You're not spamming your users, and it is basically ongoing. You set it up once, and this will forever keep running until you stop it. Other things that you could do as well, better yet, I could try to set an A/B test to know actually what would perform better for such users. What's going on? All right, let's try a different tab. All right, different tab. 1 second. Here we go. So the test for improving retention. Let me edit this, and you can see. So for the same set of users, I am choosing the same app, choosing a percentage of users, and seeing if my retention will improve if I basically do two things. Change the startup experience for the same set of users. So my dynamic audience of people who've never tried to swap their character out and are predicted to churn, and I'm going to try two different experiences. One is like as is, the game as is right now, and a different way by having them, next time they start the app, it's going to start in a different character carousel. So it will highlight that feature to them right away. You'd have to still implement this in your app, but theoretically, I could be doing this right now. There are many other use cases that you can enable with predictions. And let's go and look at remote config for a second. So we saw Steve a second ago define some remote configurations. He actually went ahead and defined a couple of other conditions for him. One is potential churners. So again, this is looking at users who might churn. And the other one were users who are unlikely to spend. And we can go to parameters. And for example, we can modify this to be even more specific. So my difficulty multiplier is not only half for frustrated users, but it's half for frustrated users who are predicted to actually churn. Or, for example, I can add a new remote configuration, for example, one that shows ads, but I only would want to show it for people who are unlikely to spend any money in my game. So it is true for this, and because we want to try out a new monetization strategy. So we're going to start enabling ads for users who are unlikely to spend and otherwise have them turned off. And if we can go back to slides, please. Yes, perfect. So all in all, using predictions is going to help you anticipate your players' actions in your game, or just your users' action in your app overall. And it's going to allow you to deliver a more focused and a more attentive experience. And combining your domain expertise, you are the expert on your app. You are the expert on your game. So dynamic audiences will allow you to take this expertise and just quantify it into audiences. And you combine this with predictions, and all of a sudden, you can unlock a whole number of imaginative use cases for your business. But most of all, you're going to do this in an efficient and in a mindful way that respects your users and their time. And I guess that is all really we have for you today. So if you have any questions for us, we are going to be in the Firebase Lounge. If you don't find us there, you feel free to find us online. It's Ask Firebase and Hack Firebase are the hashtags, and we'll do our best to respond to your questions. Thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. Really appreciate it.